There we go. Decent one though. Well, we are back. We are actually out on Lake of the Woods right now. And today I'm gonna give you the ice report, give you the fishing report, give you a little bit of a rundown and a bunch of tips and tricks to help you catch more fish here if you plan on coming up and making a trip up to the Lake of Woods. So we're gonna get this one back. There we go. Probably a keepable sauger, but like I said, I'm not keeping, but I'm gonna run through a bunch of tips, a bunch of tricks, kind of what the ice report is doing right now, because it's been a little bit of a different start to the year. But we're on the ice, 2023, 2024 ice season. Got a lot of information coming your way, so stick around. 2 fish sitting down there waiting for me. See if I can get down quick enough. Ooh, this guy's already starting to come up. Jeez, he came up and smoked it. Well, I just got done letting that first one go, and we've got another one. Couldn't even get my bait hardly down. This one's a little bit better, and we got a walleye. Good start to the trip. Fun to be back out on Lake of the Woods. We're gonna let that guy go. And that is actually gonna lead into tip number 1 when you're out here, and that is to utilize your dead stick. You know, whether it's a tip up or whether it's a dead stick in the house. For me, I have a kind of a noodle tip rod for my dead stick. But if at all possible, utilize that dead stick. Just to give you a couple different presentations down there. One, more of an aggressive approach. Sometimes that's all they want, but there's definitely days where all they want is that bait just sitting there, and they have to look at it for about 5 minutes before they bite. Early ice, sometimes like this, they're a little more aggressive, so you don't have to worry about that quite as much. But still, it's going to increase your chances of getting a fish to bite because they're all looking for something different. So that's one of the tips for today. Out on Lake of the Woods, I mean every lake, but especially Lake of the Woods, it seems that dead stick is crucial. Really quick, going to give you a rundown on kind of what the ice is looking like here. As you can see, towards the bottom is definitely more of that darker, a little bit more clear ice, and towards the top is a little bit more of that white. That's the stuff that maybe got pushed around with some of the snow or the rain that melted, all of that on some of these tricky conditions this year. But when I put my ruler down, we are sitting, see if I can see that, we're sitting right at 11 inches of ice. So very solid ice where we're at right here. And from what we've been talking to the resorts, it has been a pretty consistent 10 to 12 inches on a lot of these areas. We did talk to the Wigwam this morning, and they actually said that they found some areas with like 7 inches, which we aren't too worried about because we're on snowmobiles and ATVs. But if you're coming out with a side-by-side, obviously something to be concerned about. But seems like pretty solid ice so far. Obviously you can only go out so far. If you haven't heard, there's a crack that's opened up, and it's been just kind of depending on the wind, what is going on. So there's a bunch of ice heaves. I'll kind of overlay some of that footage here. Definitely, if you're coming up, stay on the staked trails. Don't venture too far off. You can see there's tons of resort houses out here, so you're gonna be able to find in areas to fish. But normally I would say venture out, but this year do not venture out much past the staked trails, because that is where you know the ice is going to be safe. And with the crazy conditions this year, no fish is worth your life. Please be very cautious. We are just right off the Wigwam Road here, and again, lots of areas to fish. Still quite a bit of good ice pretty much everywhere we go, but we didn't venture off too far. So like I said, we're sitting on about 11 inches here. We followed the staked road all the way out here, and we didn't have any concerns. I was on a snowmobile, my dad was on a snowmobile, brother was on an ATV, and you know, a little concerned because there's no snow on the ice. So obviously if you have a liquid cooled snowmobile, don't bring that up. Fan cooled, you're probably going to be okay as long as you're not going too fast or too far. If you stop every once in a while, drill a hole, kind of put some of that ice and slush in the track, that's going to be your best bet if you plan on bringing a snowmobile out. Well, this fish looks decent, and he bit. You bet. Whoa, it's always on my offhand. That is not as big as I thought. Wow, just showed up a little better. This thing is tiny. Tiny little sauger. Looked way bigger on the live scope. So yeah, as you can see, lots of action around. We have fish around us pretty much constantly, filtering through some of those smaller ones, which is kind of a Lake of the Woods typical. And honestly, when you're out, it's never know when these big fish are going to cruise through. That's the one we're looking for. Getting a little more vertical. See if we can keep getting it to chase. He's looking. Come on. There, he's gonna bite. Jeez, once he bit, he crushed it. That is awesome right there. That is, again, why you have a couple different presentations. Oh my gosh, I thought it was bigger, but I'm just so used to all these small fish. There we go, another 13-inch sauger, which is what you get quite a few of up here. But that will lead us right into our next tip. So we talked a little bit about presentation in using a dead stick, but another thing with presentation that is kind of a classic for Lake of the Woods is using some sort of glow. On most of my baits that I use out here, I typically like to have some sort of glow, preferably if it's in like that red or pink. Those tend to be my favorite colors, but honestly, a chartreuse works very well out here as well. So some of those brighter colors, but definitely something in a glow. You know, on my jig and spoon right now, it's actually just a white glow. This one is more of that small tungsten jig, and this is more of a pink glow, and I have my glow cup on my live scope. With this kind of stained water, being able to have something that's going to attract these fish, especially in those low light periods, but honestly throughout the whole day. Anytime I have something glow, it almost always outproduces something that isn't. So use that dead stick, but also use something glow, preferably pink or red. Looks aggressive. Oh yeah, you can see the mood of this one. Oh, I thought it was going to come in and crush it. There's another one following behind. Let's see, I'll start jigging this guy a little bit. That one's gonna smoke it. Yep. That was on the dead stick. As I was going and jigging that one, I just see the noodle tip. You can see that noodle tip on this rod, so soft. But it just came up and just crushed that thing, just bent it right over. Another smaller sauger, but I guess we can go on to another tip here once I get this rebaited. And the next tip is to read the mood of the fish. Like I talked a little bit earlier with the dead stick, there are days where all they want is that bait just sitting really close to bottom or right on bottom, and they do not want to have to move for it much. And then there's days where, like you've seen some of these fish that are very aggressive. They want to come up and crush it. And you can see those two fish came in and both of them had a little bit different mood. I saw that one starting to come up and starting to rise up. So I thought that thing was going to be more aggressive. Started to pull it up. But as I pulled it up, just kind of swam away. Let it sit there. That second one absolutely came up and crushed it. So kind of reading the mood of these fish. And it might change throughout the day, but don't get so stuck on one presentation. If they're biting aggressive early in the day, don't get stuck on that and only jig aggressively. So read the mood of each fish. If you're lucky enough to have some sort of electronics, Vexilar, some sort of flasher, live scope, even better, then you can really see what they're doing on a live scope. I really like when they start to go vertical. That's when you know you can start raising it up off bottom just a little bit more. So another tip for you, read the mood of the fish. Every day is different, even hour by hour can be different. Just needed to do that to get it to commit. It's always on my offhand when I have my dead stick on the other side here. Another small one. Just needed a little bit of a raise. Again, actually, ouch. Wow. Again, this one would probably be in that 14, maybe even closer to 15-inch range for a sauger, which if you know the regulations for Lake of the Woods, 6 combined, only 4 can be walleye. So sometimes if you are planning on keeping a limit, which I am not necessarily today, that is one that's going to be a great kind of extra fish to finish out that limit. And this next tip is one that is definitely more applicable 90% of the time out here. This year, this is going to have an asterisk, but 90% of the time, what I recommend people is to get away from other people. Stay away from the crowds. And it's very easy, especially when fish are biting in a specific depth. You know, on the east side of the lake, it's much more depth dependent as it is structure dependent. But try to stay away from the crowds as much as possible, because yes, there might be bigger groups of fish in one area, but you're all going to be competing for the same fish, where if you're off away from them, there might not be quite as many fish, but you're going to have the fish to yourself, and they're typically going to be more aggressive because there's less noise going on and they are less pressured. So they're going to be a little less spooky, hopefully more aggressive. So this year, stay to the stake trails so far until things improve, but most often stay away from the groups. Get away, get kind of off in a different area. Sometimes I honestly just like to drive out to a flat and drill a hole, see if there's fish around. And kind of going right along with that is try different structure, try different depths. I mean, it's easy to see when you hear the bites going in 24 feet, in 20 feet, in 28 feet. It's easy to try to stick to that depth. But if you're not catching fish, try something different. Try different depths, try different structure. If you're off in maybe more of the mud flats, try moving closer to some rock. Try moving a little bit shallower. Try moving a little bit deeper. Whatever it is, don't get stuck just because you hear a report of a bite going on in a certain depth. Try different things. It might not work out every time, and that's okay. So you might feel like you're wasting a little bit of time, but I've done it enough out here that it is definitely more beneficial to keep moving, trying different things until you can piece a bite together. And not only that, but it's also more rewarding. It's very easy to go out with the groups and just kind of mill around, catching a few fish here and there with everyone else. But if you can go and find a bite that's unique to you, and honestly, they tend to be the best bites, that is so much more rewarding. Again, This year, a little bit different. Honestly, we only had so many choices, and there's so many fish houses spread out from the resorts because they're just getting houses out here that we had to kind of fish around the groups, and we had to kind of stay in one area. We're out of Pine Island right now. I'm sitting in about 23 feet, and that's with, you know, a foot or two of my transducer. So that's where I'm out. I kind of went out as far as I could close to the crack while still being safe, while still they had something staked. And we're kind of just out in this flat, you know, out of Pine Island like this. There's just a lot of this kind of gradual drop out to different depths. So a lot of times it is just a depth thing on the east side of the lake. Find the right depth and you're going to find these groups of fish. You know, some areas, you know, Long Point, Rocky Point, some of those, there's a lot more reefs. There's a lot more structure out there. So you're going to be able to vary depths much more easily and be able to fish different types of structure, where, like I said, where we're fishing out here, definitely just these gradual breaks, and these big schools of fish are just kind of roaming around. And so what these fish do is there's these giant groups of fish. Some days they're a little bit tighter groups, but a lot of times they're just scattered over these huge flats, and they just roam. Sometimes they'll be miles long where everybody can be catching fish. Sometimes they're a little more specific in smaller groups, but overall in this area, in the Pine Island on the east side, kind of towards Badette, the Rainy River area, that is going to be more of that gradual break with these fish just kind of milling around over this whole thing. And so you might have a depth range from 18 to 22. That's a lot of what we've been hearing, is that 18 to 22 foot range, partially because that's about as far as you can go, but also a lot of times this time of year, that is a very consistent depth. And there's just big groups kind of moving around in here. Lots of people are catching fish. The bite has been pretty good. Later in the year, they kind of move out a little bit deeper, but a lot of times they're just moving around in these depth ranges. And if you can kind of find an area where there's fish cruising around, you're going to have consistent action kind of throughout the whole day. Oh yeah, that's gonna smoke the dead stick. Yep. Man, I haven't had to move that dead stick a whole lot, and they have been coming up and smoking it. Again, still in that smaller class size, but whoa, another sauger. Still in that smaller class size, but nice thing about Lake of the Woods is you can, whoa, mix in some action with some of these smaller fish. And you can also mix in some eaters, and honestly, you never know where you're gonna stumble into a stud. A lot of times you'll get these little guys like this, and then a 25, 26, 27, a 30 incher might cruise through. They can be milling around in some of these flats as well. What I typically find is a lot more of your eater size and smaller fish are off in these deep flats, and your percentage of better fish are closer to the structure. But that's just kind of a general rule of thumb that I have found. And kind of moving right into the next tip, and that is to keep moving. You know, especially in kind of the wheelhouse world that we live in, it's very easy to just set up shop, be comfortable, and if that's what you want to do, that's fine. It can be a very fun and enjoyable way to fish, but if you're like me, I am very ADD, and if I'm not catching fish, I want to move. And it's pretty evident. You can pretty easily tell if there's going to be fish in the area kind of within that first half hour. So that's kind of my general rule of thumb. Some days I'll only wait 10 minutes, and if I don't see anything, I'm moving, especially if I'm fishing structure. But a lot of times, you know, if you give it half an hour, that's going to be a pretty good indicator that there's not a ton of fish in the area, and I would keep moving. With that being said, there's times where there can easily be lulls for an hour, a couple hours in that middle of the day time frame, and then it'll pick up. So you might be running a risk a little bit, but I like to keep moving. Don't get stuck in one spot, again, just because you've heard someone else doing well, or because you are set up in your fish house and you're comfortable. Keep moving. Keep trying to find new things. Keep trying to find active fish. Even if you're seeing fish, if they're not biting, move around again. Try to find some active fish. So that's another tip for you. Keep moving around out here. Again, this year, so far early in the year, you're going to be a little bit limited in that, but as much as you can, try to find some different areas. Even like I said, my dad is 100 feet over that way. He's caught more size, 15, 16, 17 inches. I'm in that kind of 13 to 15 inch range, a little bit smaller size frame. I'm catching more, and that's easily only 100 feet away. So sometimes a smaller move like that can be a difference maker as well, depending on the size structure or the type of fish that you're looking for. So keep moving, don't get lazy, and 9 times out of 10, that's going to produce much more and better fish. Another couple moving around, just waiting to see something a little bit bigger. That second one, oh, is he on it? Yeah, he is. Doesn't seem giant, but it looks like he's on there. Switch hands just to get ready. Still on there. Yep. Again, you can see that noodle tip. It just has so much forgiveness. I can do that. I can switch hands, give them a little bit more time. We got a walleye, probably about a 12 incher. Not what we're looking to keep, but we got another solid action. Again, I don't know if there's been maybe 5 minutes that I haven't had a fish on the screen or biting. Been very consistent action so far, which is always fun. And now hopefully we can filter through some of these to get a little bit better size structure, hopefully in a little bit. And with that, we do have another tip, and this tip is more of a cautionary tip for the health of this lake, but that is, please do not fish too deep. The general rule of thumb is 30 feet, and I know that a lot of times when it gets to be later in the winter, the best bite is going to be in that 30 to 35 foot range. But a lot of those fish that you're catching, and when you're catching like today, caught a bunch of small saugers, a bunch of small walleyes, a lot of those fish are going to be dying. It's just plain and simple. And so please do not fish too deep. And even if you're going to go out, say, I'm only going to catch my limit and go back in, you're still going to run the risk of catching some of these smaller fish and depleting some of that population. Even though it's one person, you might think, I'm just killing a few fish, not a big deal, or they're swimming away just fine. A lot of times, even those fish that swim away fine are dying in those depths because a lot of them are very close to bottom. Even if it's just one person, even if it's just, you're thinking it's just you, but when there are hundreds and hundreds, thousands of houses out here doing the same exact thing, that is killing a lot of fish. So please don't fish too deep. There's going to be fish biting in some of those shallower areas. So if at all possible, stay at least under that 30-foot range, and that's going to help the overall health of this amazing fishery. Yep, he's going to smoke it. Come on, there he bit. There we bit. Maybe a little better again. Hopefully I won't lose this one. Let's see what we got. This one might be more. Oh yeah, that's more what we're looking for. There we go. Solid about 16-inch right there, and we have more fish cruising through, so I'm gonna put that in the box and we'll keep moving. Oh, this fish, geez, just needed it moving. There's another decent one on bottom. This one doesn't feel quite as big. I'd like to get back down quickly and hopefully get to that one. Get this guy off. Try it, keep cruising. Ooh, this one is easily the biggest of the day. Oh, that almost looks like a sturgeon, doesn't it? You can see just the shape of it. Crazy. You can just see the shape of its body. Oh, that is so cool. Which one's bigger? Ooh, ooh. This one's more aggressive. Holy cow, that guy is what we like to see right there. Man, if they could all be doing that, life would be good. Decent fish too. Oh, sauger. Solid sauger. That one might be in that keepable range. Man, we have the resorts out here. Like I said, we're out on Wigwams Road here, and they are doing their best to get everyone out. So they have houses out like crazy. There we go. Another one. I'm actually gonna let that one go. So you can hear the chainsaws going there, checking ice. They are working hard. That is another thing that I want to say is before you come up, make sure you're checking with resorts. They are out here like crazy. They're working hard. They're doing their best to get everyone out safe and on fish. And this has been such a hard year for so many resorts. Take the time to say thanks, pay for the roads, book a day house. That is only going to help, because for anybody that relies on this ice fishing season, this has been a tough start to the year. Solid fish. As we're talking, end up with another decent walleye. So yes, support the resorts. Either book a house with them, pay for the roads. They've lost a lot of income so far this year, and they are working very hard. That is going to be another perfect one in that eater size. Ooh, real quick, I should show presentation since I have both rods up. What I've caught about half the fish on, again, is this Euro tackle. This is the T-flasher. It's a tungsten jig and spoon. I am sorry if you can't hear very good. That fish right there was caught on that T-flasher, and on my dead stick, I just have a small glow pink tungsten jig. Speaking of that, I should glow it up quick. Ooh, maybe a little better. This one's coming right for it. Yep. That one must have spooked when I caught this guy, because there was a second one with it. Again, hopefully you can hear with all the chainsaw going. This is number, I'm not even sure what number it is. Another, not tiny sauger. A lot of times when you're coming up, you're getting these like 8 to 10 inch saugers. These have all been like 12, 13, 14 inch saugers, which for saugers are easily keepable. We're trying to, you know, keep maybe 15 and above, but if times are tough, you know, those 13, 14 inchers, they can be really good. But again, I'm not going to tell anybody what to or not to keep, because everybody that fishes has a different preference on what they like to keep. So that's just what we're choosing to do today. I stung him with that other one, and I was like, well, maybe I'll give it a shot. Whew, we are in a little bit of chaos here. Another, probably, I don't know, 15, 16 incher. Yep, he bit. There we go. Another decent fish. One more solid fish, and I actually do think I'm gonna throw this one back here. Oh yeah, that time he closed the gap. You bet. Man, I know these haven't been giant, but being able to go set the hook on a bunch of walleyes and saugers is just what the doctor ordered after a brutal start. So it feels very good to just go catch a bunch of these. I also gotta say, if you're enjoying this overlay with the live scope like this, I gotta give credit where credit is due to Nick Lindner. Good buddy of mine. He kind of came up with this idea. Now, if you've watched any fishing YouTube videos, a ton of people are doing it, but he was kind of the first one to start utilizing that. Just a super cool idea. He's doing a lot of really cool, innovative things on YouTube with some of the live streams and whatnot. So if you haven't gone and checked out his channel, make sure you go. I'll link his channel below in the description. Make sure you go and check his stuff out as well. Another one cruising through, one of these guys. Oh my gosh. Whoa, this one felt bigger. I have rods. Shoot, I'm a tangled mess. I have one sitting down there on that rod. All right, sauger. Oh my gosh, I'm a yard sale. Now I'll reel up this guy. See if that one's gonna go for the dead stick. Sure enough, it did. We'll get that one back down. See if this guy, a bit. Jeez. We have about 3 fish in a very short amount of time. None of them are anything crazy big. Again, a couple of these saugers are actually okay for saugers. A little better maybe, not a ton. Oh, one thing I haven't talked about yet is setup. One more decent sauger, 34-inch medium, Piscifun ICX ice rod with the Carbon X2 1000. That is primarily what I've been using so far this year. Decent rod, like I said. If you watched any of my last videos, a little more moderate action than I usually use, but for a fish like this, it is perfectly fine. It's a 34-inch medium, but like I said, a little more moderate, a little bit more medium light. Well, like I said, we're sitting on about 11 inches. Lots of houses out. Hopefully you got some value out of this video. If you did, I would love it if you would subscribe, if you would comment, all that kind of stuff. That's what helps me continue to create videos like this. So a fun few hours out here of honestly pretty much non-stop action. Again, size structure wasn't great, but a lot of eater size fish. And if you're looking to come up, get some action, set the hook on a bunch of good fish. And if you don't want any of the hassle, any of the worries, you can book a house or you can bring your own stuff up like we did today. And lots of options, because as we know, this year has been a heck of a year. So I hope you're able to find some safe ice. Again, no matter what, please be safe. Always trust the resorts, check with them first before you go out. And if you are venturing out, venture out slowly and check as you go. Lots more ice content coming your way. So stay tuned. Thanks so much for watching. Appreciate the support. See you next time.